What's up? My name is Pablo Gonzalez, host of the Chief Executive Connector podcast. And if you want to learn to design your best life and have the courage to live it, you should be listening to my homegirl, Amber Furman, with the More Than Corporate podcast, because guess what? She did it. So you want to follow suit? Get on there.
Welcome to the More Than Corporate podcast. I'm Amber Furman, recovering perfectionist and serial accomplisher. If you're anything like I used to be, you've been living your life thinking that if you accomplish enough stuff, you'll finally find the success you've always wanted. But what if it's not about accomplishing more stuff? What if it's about accomplishing the right stuff? I believe you don't find success. You create it by intentionally designing the life you want and having the courage to get out of your comfort zone to live your design. I went from doing what I was supposed to do to doing what I love to do, and now I get to help others do the same. Keep listening as I chat with inspiring people who make it their mission to live their best life every day and learn how you too can live the life you've always wanted. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the More Than Corporate podcast. I am really excited to bring Pablo Gonzalez to you through this amazing interview today. And if you guys haven't met Pablo, you're going to be glad that you did. He has so much energy. He's so amazing. He is the Chief Connection Officer, which this is just a title that I want to have, but Pablo is obsessed with human connection, and he's used his expertise to manage a 120-person, $15 million construction business at just the age of 25. He builds various young professional groups for charities, and he's been named as a Latino Leader of the Future by Latino Leaders Magazine and a top 20 under 40 for Brickell Magazine. This has led to becoming the founder and chief executive connector at Connect With Pablo, a content marketing and community creation agency, proving that community creation is the future of business development, the host of the Chief Executive Connector podcast, and the Not Your Average Investor show. And he's an award-winning speaker. More than anything, he's dying to be your friend. And let me tell you, you should be Pablo's friend as well. Pablo, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Amber, that was quite a mouthful you read there that I made you read. I appreciate it. I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
You paid me well. You paid me well.
I did.
Really quickly, before we get into this interview with Pablo, I want to talk to all of you out there who have said, I'll be happy when, who are waiting for that magic fairy to drop all that happiness on you when you hit that external idea of success that you've created in your mind. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but when you hit it, nothing's going to change. You are not going to magically morph into this ball of happiness. You only get there by specifically identifying what success means to you and being able to set action steps on how to accomplish that success. If somebody was to ask you, what does success mean? And you cannot answer that question, then the Design Your Life Mastermind is for you. We're going to dig into how to design a life that you love, how to create the success you've always wanted. So head over to designyourlife.successdevelopmentsolutions.com and we'll get you headed towards a life that you love. Now let's hear from Pablo. Pablo, man.
Yes.
We connected at PodMax, and I can't say enough about the connections that I make at this amazing event. I feel like they just keep coming. It's such a great event.
But Amber, we connected prior in Travis Chappell's Facebook group. We took like an exploratory call, and then PodMax has just ignited this bonfire of friendship between us, right?
You are right. You are right. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really awesome. Appreciate it. So we're live streaming this to the community. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. Pablo, how does one become a Chief Connection Officer?
Listen, Amber, so two things, right? Number one, in my thesis of community creation for business development, early on, I identified this idea that every company needs to have somebody that is a C-level executive whose sole focus is to find the alchemy between your clients, your employees, your network, your partnerships, and figure out how to serve connections between that. Because that, from a personal level, I have always found that is the people that do the best in life are those people, are the people that get to know people, find out what they're about, connect them with somebody that they know. So it just only makes sense to me that in this future vision that I have, where community creation is the tool that everybody needs to abide by, which I really think is coming, because I think the world is automating and digitalizing and blah, 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 blah. And employee churn and customer churn and all these things are going to continue to happen as everything gets commoditized. I believe that that is a part of my thesis that needs to happen. So I just went ahead and gave myself that title. On another side of it, I'm obsessed right now with category design and category king creation. And the key tenet to that is the idea that marketing yourself as different is better than marketing yourself than better, right? So within the idea that different beats better, I've realized that I've done this throughout my life, right? Like when my green building company got acquired by my biggest client and I went in-house, I made up the name director of sustainability in like 2010, 2011. And I would go to these green building conferences. I was the only one. 5-6 years later, there were like a handful of directors of sustainability, right? When I got to Miami and, I was working on this whole sustainability stuff and thinking that Miami was going to sink into the ocean, that was the way that I got known as. I became the sustainability guy because I had this unique title. When I was transitioning I transitioned from construction to tech. From tech, I kind of took a 90-day purposeful pause to figure out where I want to be in 10 years. And I've created this company after that. Instead of introducing myself as somebody in between jobs, I introduced myself as a professional networker. And that raised a bunch of eyebrows, opened a bunch of eyes, right? So like in every way, that anytime that I'm obsessed about something, I tend to make up a title for myself that explains what it is and makes somebody go, huh? And that way I know that I stand out and I know that I'll be memorable and it leads to more conversation. So that's kind of the two sides of it, right? Like it is a key fixture in my future thesis, which I'm well on the way to proving right now. And as I reverse engineer, I realize that giving myself unique titles is a really, really good way to become memorable, be well-known, start conversations. It helps you separate from the pack.
Oh my gosh, so much amazing stuff to unpack there. First of all, I want to hit on this different beats better. I think that in and of itself is super powerful and worth all the time investment that anybody is making in listening to this podcast. I feel like so many times we are told, or we believe, or we think we hear that we have to fit into a box. And so we spend all of our time trying to take all of the things that make us different and fit into a box. And you're saying that that's the wrong way to do things.
100%, right? So the human brain works kind of like how you're moving through the grocery store aisle, right? The grocery store is separated into specific aisles because your brain needs to categorize things. If you walk into a room, again, by the way, this is if you want to be memorable, if you want to open doors, if you want to make a name for yourself, right? Like if you are trying to hide in plain sight, then this isn't necessarily the conversation for you. I don't know why you would be listening to Amber's podcast anyways, right? But the human brain likes to categorize things, right? So the moment that somebody puts you as, oh, you're an attorney, you just go into the bucket of attorneys, right? The moment they put you into, oh, you're a podcaster that's in lifestyle design that happens to create law, now you're in your own category, right? There's no other attorney that's doing what they're doing. And now you reside in a special place in people's brain that they think of you differently when the word comes up. They don't associate you with attorney, they associate you with somebody that can help them find a better life, right? So the idea that we try to fit into this box, right? When people ask you what you do and you say, I'm an accountant, people are just going to be like, okay, well, that goes into like the list of like 35 accountants I met at the last Chamber of Commerce event. But if you talk about, if you're an accountant and people ask you what you do and you're like, listen, man, I'm really passionate about solving for tax returns for people that have 3 children and are looking to buy a house, right? Like immediately it just separates you, right? So it's like, market towards the thing that you're trying to solve to, not your solution, right? Like I'm trying to create connections. So I'm telling everybody, listen, we need to understand that people are valuable. Like the more different somebody is, the more valuable they are to you, because the more you have to learn to them. And I never shut up about that. And because I never shut up about that, people automatically assume that I have the solution for Okay, then how do I learn from others? How do I connect with other people? How do I bring people into my life? Simply because I'm addressing the need that I'm trying to solve. And that is what makes you different, right? You create your own category of problem solving, and people then categorize you there. And now next time they see somebody that's a chief connection officer, a chief executive connector, they're like, oh, no, I already got one of those, right? Like they're done.
If there's ever two of you, like this is the best title ever. And it's so funny. My mind is flashing back to a Tough Mudder that I ran where we all had to put, we were volunteering and we put our name tags on, and my trainer, we're all putting our name tags on with our name. And I turn around and he has director of high fives on his name tag.
Love it.
And all of a sudden, like people were walking up to him going, director of high fives. Like, do you work for Tough Mudder? Like, what is this? Right. And so we always joke that I introduced him as the director of high fives. So this is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions that I have for you. Oh, go ahead.
Just to go right into micro, it's no different than the person that shows up to the networking event with a bow tie, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's just like whatever you have that's unique about you is going to inspire connection, because people are going to be like, oh, you're the bow tie guy, and now I know you, right? Like they just, you're able to categorize people. So, whatever. I've never been that person that has like the gimmicky thing that I wear at a networking, like a button or something like that. But I know people that use that and it works really well for them, right? Like, because they want that crutch. And if you need that crutch to be known, then use it, right? Like I very strategically use titles to do it, right?
Yeah, I love that. So, two things. First of all, talking about this gimmicky thing, for lack of a better description, because there's so much of it. Like when you say that, I'm flashing to about 7 attorneys that I know that, like, you just hear a description of them and you know exactly who they are because of what they wear.
Yep.
But I also know that that's who they are in personality. Like their personality is bold,
Correct.
their personality is out there. So when you're deciding how you're going to stand out, what is your advice for making sure that that thing is actually authentic to your personality?
Represent stuff that you love, right? Like it's to me, it's be the bat signal for the things that you want in your life, right? Like just when I was knee deep in the sustainability stuff, all I talked about was like, listen, man, we need to solve this problem, right? Like Miami is sinking. We're going to be the sacrificial lamb of first world sea level rise problems. Do you want that? Right? Like I wouldn't shut up about that. Now I'm just always like, listen, man, you need to have people around you. Like the quickest way to grow, the quickest way to learn is to have quality people around you. Right. So if you want to take it way back, I used to never stop quoting Ace Ventura. I still kind of do it once to thrice a day, right? So like for the first, from like 5th grade to about when everybody stopped subscribing to cable, anytime like Ace Ventura was on TBS or HBO or whatever, I'd get a random text from someone like, dude, Ace Ventura's on TV. I just thought about you. And boom, all of a sudden someone is thinking about me, right? Like, and that person that's thinking about me may be thinking about me, and it may lead to a nice conversation, or it may lead to, what are you up to these days? Oh my God, I may be able to use that service. Or I mean, like it just, if you give people an easy way to remember you, it leads to opportunities for you to help them in the things that you want. So again, the gimmick has to be something that you generally are into, right? Like if somebody was calling me every single time they, I don't know, read the Bible, like I don't really want to have like a Bible talk with everybody every time I talk with someone, right? I know that's a horrible example, but if you are known for things that bring a smile to your face, then you can't lose.
Yeah, I love that. So, taking this out of just connecting with people and creating this name for yourself, we're now talking about like these mass marketing strategies, right?
Yeah.
Make yourself make because so much of being marketing isn't about what you do, it's about who you are, it's about being top of mind, it's about being memorable
Yeah.
when somebody needs to remember you. And so many people are focused on, what do I use to, like, what procedure do I get my marketing out? How do I do Facebook ads? How
Yes.
do I do that? When they should be focused on, how do I make people remember me?
100%. Right. It's know, like, and trust, right? So you got to get people to know you, and you're only going to have a certain amount of retention of the people that you meet. So you can either have to meet the same person 5 times before they remember you, or you make a really great first impression, right?
Yeah.
And to the marketing tactic thing, this whole category design thing is a marketing and business development tactic, right? Like there's this book called Play Bigger where they analyze all of the companies that IPO'd in the last 10 years and those that took a category king kind of approach to things, and they delineate what they did. And it's just phenomenal. It's literally the only book I've ever read twice in 12 months. And I just finished it again because as I'm launching my company, I'm like, dude, I need to hit this again because it's brilliant. Right. And it is the whole market the problem. Right. And like the more you market the problem, the more people think that you own the solution. And then once you do that, you need to figure out how to encapsulate the problem as a category. And if you can create the category and dominate it, then what the statistics show is that you end up owning 75% of the market cap of that category, right? So like forever, Netflix is going to be, when I say live streaming entertainment, you're going to think Netflix. So that means that Netflix is going to have 75% of that category, and Hulu and Disney Plus and all these other people are going to fight for the rest of it, right? Like same thing with Uber, same thing with Google, same thing with Facebook, right? Like these companies that dominate categories, that's the monetary incentive of it, is because you create your own market capitalization. So when you think about like GoPro, GoPro dominates the extreme sports action camera, but it's a category that has a certain limit, right? Like at a certain point, it stops growing. And then you think about companies like Apple that have been continuous category creators, right? Like, if nobody says MP3 player, they say iPod. Nobody says smartphone, they say iPhone. Nobody says tablet, they say iPad, right? Like they've done it over and over. So I just very, very much adhere to those principles. And then the last chapter of the book talks about how as a person you can do category design. And I'm like, oh, this has been me my whole life, right?
I love it. Name of that book one more time.
Play bigger.
Play bigger. I like it. Uh-oh, he's got a copy.
Ha!
Yes. Oh, I even like the cover.
Yeah, it's cool.
The cover even stands out. All right, that is going on my reading list.
I could not
So,
recommend it more.
oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So let's step back for just a minute and go back to this different beats better idea. You're creating these titles for yourself, which I completely understand since I'm a success architect, and I don't know that one of those exists anywhere, right?
Correct. Yep.
But there's this imposter syndrome that goes on when somebody says, "Oh, I can't name myself that. That's not a thing." How do you work through that? And what advice do you have for somebody that still feels like they need to shy down to fit into
Yeah.
this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, Amber? I've never created a title for myself that I didn't fully wholeheartedly buy into, right? Like I'll be honest with you, right? I have not considered myself CEO level material, even though the rest of my circle kind of growing up and to this day see me as somebody that is a sharp businessman, can be an executive kind of thing. I really didn't start believing it until about 3 months ago, right? Like about 3 months ago, I started really seeing myself in front of like 45 people in this like semi-industrial loft office space, talking about how we finished the year and our core values and the vision that we have for next year and blah, blah, blah. Before that, I didn't, right? So I never call myself CEO Pablo. I never call myself, exec Pablo, billionaire Pablo, right? Like I'm not calling myself that, but as a connector, by the time that I graduated into this chief executive connector thing, that really is all I've ever seen myself as, right? Like I am somebody who is constantly seeking connection, constantly seeking how to connect people with others and trying to play that the way that you're a success architect. I see myself as a community architect, right? Like I'm always trying to pair people and I'm trying to be a tour guide and a hype man and a friend all at once kind of thing, right? So I would say the short answer to that is stick within your means, man. Like stick to only the things that you really wholeheartedly believe in your heart of hearts, that you may not be the person that you want to be in that realm, but you sure shit care way more about that subject and that action and that ability than anybody that you know.
Yeah, that's a really powerful answer. And I think that it's really going to connect with a lot of people who are out there saying, "Oh, I don't know if I resonate with this." The title is important, but it's not as important as the actions. Like you want it to stand out, and then your actions have to fit to that. And I love the way that you said that you didn't see yourself as CEO material because we heard your bio. You have this amazing ability to connect with somebody and to bring in an audience and to just command attention. And everybody around you says, "Oh, I'm a CEO, you're CEO material." And I think that that just shows that this idea of imposter syndrome is real everywhere, right? That there's always this idea of, am I this? And when you break it down and say, just stay within what's true to you.
Yeah.
So my second question to that, because you have not stayed within a comfort zone at any point in time. So how do you stay true to you and also push yourself to new heights at the same time?
I think staying true to you requires pushing yourself to new heights all the time, right? Like being true to myself is the reason why I left a very successful 15-year career in construction where I just never saw myself as the head of a construction company. And I knew that there was something else out there for me. And I, took this gamble joining this startup in the tech world for Amazon sellers that are doing retail arbitrage, right? Like the bottom of the rung of like e-commerce kind of thing. Just because I'm like, listen, man, if there's people making money like that, then this whole Fortune 500 exec life isn't the only path. Then with all due respect, Dad, I followed your advice for 36 years, but I need to go prove something to myself, man. Like I think that's it. I think being true to myself is the reason why I have continued to push my comfort zone, because I was never comfortable being myself in any other in any other realm. And I don't think it's by coincidence that now that I have, I still don't really call myself a marketer, right? Even though I have a marketing company, but now that I have found this field and this methodology and this built a company around harnessing my superpower to serve others as the way that my company goes, now I'm feeling real comfortable, right? Like now I'm just like, yeah, okay. Now I see myself growing this company, I see myself going past $1 million this year. I see it, scaling up to a $10 million company, right? Like the best thing I can tell you is that when you're in flow, when you're in integrity, I guess is the term, right? Like when you are back to square one. If you figure out what you're really good at, that you love doing, then you figure out how you can serve others with that ability. Then you figure out how that service can be monetized in an authentic way when you're not feeling cheesy. And by that, I mean, my skill set, everybody's like, oh, have a mastermind. Oh, charge people for introductions. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to, I've been in a fraternity. It was awesome, but I don't really want people to pay to be my friend, right? Like I want to do it some other way. I stuck true to that. And I figured out a service that literally allows me to be a hype man, which is what I am born to do. And I love doing, and I love connecting people with each other and making them feel special and making their message feel heard. And once I figured that out and I monetized it once, it's fucking over, man. Like now it's just like, all right, how can I do that more and more and more and more? And the reason why I now see myself as a CEO, Amber, is because I've never been able to be disciplined around these things, right? Like I've always been talented. I've always had this, but I've never been able to like keep a really, really disciplined plan. And now that I am right there at the cusp of this, just like, I don't want to call it a perfect life, but I'm just so happy and so energized all the time that the discipline piece has never been easier for me, because it's so obvious that the more disciplined I am around what I'm doing, the more I get to do the shit that I love doing. Right? So
Oh my gosh. Oh my
that's it.
gosh. I love your energy right now. Like I'm sitting back here just wanting to, like
Yeah,
I need
me too. I'm like,
pom-poms, right?
Yeah, I'm pumped.
You know what? If I could sum this up in just a couple of minutes, it sounds like the answer is be you, make money. Like that's where we're at, right?
Yeah,
Let go of which I love so much, because that's the moral of this podcast. Let go of what everybody else tells you is success. Let go of what everybody else tells you you're supposed to be doing with your life. Be you, make money.
dude. And the beauty of it, Amber, is that we would not have been able to say this and scream it from the mountaintops 10 years ago.
Oh God,
But the
no.
fact of the matter is that the internet has allowed this.
Yeah,
Now
100%.
now that you can connect with 10,000 people, right? If you get 10,000 people to give you $100 a year, that's $1 million a year, right? And 10,000 people in internet land is nobody. That's the size of a high school, right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you got to monetize. And you don't have geographic restrictions around it. So you are able to find your tribe. And in a world of however billion people there are, there's 10,000 people that need you, man. They really do.
Yeah, so true. Man, I'm loving this conversation. And I love your commitment to connection. So I want to move this in just a little bit. What exactly is a relationship flywheel?
The relationship flywheel is my way of category creating what I do. Right. Like it is a term that I, as soon as I manifested that term, people are like, oh, I want it. Right. Throughout my career and throughout my late 20s, early 30s, I had this transition where I've always been from a young age, I've been very relationship driven, right? Like moved around 3 continents before the age of 9. I've always wanted to belong and make sure that the new kid at school belongs and blah, 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 right? I always did it out of like personal gain to a certain extent, right? Like when I was 7 years old, I would ask to sit by myself on the plane when we flew from Madrid to Venezuela because the first time I did it, I got an old guy to buy me a Toblerone. So from there on out, I saw everybody as a mark, you know? So in my early 30s, I started realizing that the shelf life of the funny guy exists. Right. As I started getting on the boards of charities and like really leveling up with who I was rubbing elbows with in society, I started looking around and realizing the most influential people, the people that have the access to the greatest things and relationships and whatnot, they connect through service, right? Like they are able to meet people, find out what they're about, put them in contact with somebody else that needs it, right? So at that point, I got really focused in on that. Then when my brother passed away and 1,200 people showed up to his funeral, I realized that the greatest value and service you can give people is community, right? So that at that point was just became apparent to me. Then I started just really leaning in on that, like really iterating on that piece. And what I realized at one point when I got acquired, I became director of sustainability for this construction company. And they kind of put me in a hole to die, right? Like they were just like, all right, we got the hippie guy that we need to to finish the presentation. And like, he makes us look good in public, but there is no career track inside this hospital university builder for director of sustainability guy to move up or down in because he's his own category, right? And as I try to be more valuable, and as I'm like feeling like I'm at a dead end, I'm getting named like top 20 under 40 on Latino Leaders Magazine, right? So it's the juxtaposition was there, right? So I'm like seeking how to thread that needle. And at one day, the CEO of my company got invited to speak on a panel for smart cities, and he didn't want to go last minute, so they sent me instead. And when I get there, it's at the Economic Development Agency of Miami in front of like 100 people. And I share the stage with the head of Latin America for Cisco Systems and the head of the Smart Cities Initiative for the World Bank and 33-year-old Pablo, who's at a dead end in his career. Cool. I do my thing. When I come off it, there's a line 6 people deep waiting to talk to me. It had never happened to me before. And as I'm going through these conversations, I'm like, oh, everybody here thinks I'm more important than I am. Right. So, and at that moment, I'm like, the stage, right? So because I was on the stage and because they were in the audience, they attribute a certain level of validation to what I was saying. And because I was on stage with people of a certain ilk, I became guilty by association of the people of that ilk, right? So I'm like, this is a great trick. How can I use it? And my first move at this point was I had, created these young professional groups. So I reached out to this developer that was building this high rise in a high income, low density area in Miami called Coral Gables. So, high income people don't want a high rise in their backyard, but it was on top of the Metro Rail station in front of University of Miami. And by doing that, I knew that it was called transit oriented development. They were incentivizing public transportation investment in Miami. And I knew that that was important. So this developer's having a hell of a time getting that thing approved. I reach out to him. I'm like, hey, man, I know what you're up to. It's transit-oriented development. I know a politician on the board of one of my charities that is super into public transportation. And I know a land use attorney that is really into it too. I want to have an event for my young professional groups talking about the importance of public transportation and how developers fit into the mix. You down? And he's like, yeah, I'm in. So have this event, cost me nothing. Like 20 young professionals show up, don't make him any money, but I put him on a stage. I introduced him to a politician that was friendly with his cause, introduced him to a land use attorney that's friendly with his cause. A week later, he's in the office saying, hey man, you guys going to bid on the $60 million project or what? Right. So we're backdooring this big project. And, that was the transcendent moment of, okay, so now I figured out that when you connect with people, it's about having value, right? Like finding people's value and enabling relationships. And the stage is the multiplier of that. And as I iterated through this, I realized that there's stages everywhere, right? Like content, this is a stage, right? Your Facebook Live that we're doing right now, people are seeing me on a screen. I have that same effect of being on, like it's the same thing. I'm in the audience, you're on the stage. So whatever crap I say, they're going to give an extra little bit of value to it, right? So as I figured that piece out, I came up with this formula that is a flywheel of value, relationships, and content. And the idea is that if you can figure out who you're trying to serve, right, and what they care about, right? So your clientele, Amber, are people that are transitioning in life. They probably aren't super happy with their job. They're thinking about starting a new career or taking a new promotion. They're about to get into personal development, or they're in personal development. They're reading a bunch of books, right? So that's that persona. You represent one solution to them, but in your network and probably in your clientele themselves, there's a bunch of people that also have advice to give them, right? It's very similar to what you're doing right now, right? Like you get this intuitively. So if you can design a stage that can be like a live event stage or a Facebook live feed or a podcast or an email list or a blog or however you want to do it, right? Like your Instagram feed can do it, right? David Meltzer does it going live on his Instagram feed. And you can just bring in people, attract them with the value that you have to offer, right? So today you're like, we're going to teach you somebody who's going to grow with relationships. That's the value, right? That's the carrot. People show up to see that. When you're on that stage, you enable 3 relationships. You enable the relationship with the person that you're hosting, right? So that is the intimate dinner out, get to know you, what are your hopes and dreams, right? So like us, by doing this, we're getting closer. If you're also enabling the relationship with your clientele at large, right? So people showing up to your Facebook Live right now feel like they're going to feel like they just had an hour-long call with you. And whether it's 5 people or 20 people or 60 people, that's better than 5-hour-long calls, 20-hour-long calls, 60-hour-long calls. And then the third piece is enabling the third relationship, the guest and the audience, right? And the way that looks is when somebody asks a question, instead of saying, oh, here's a good question, you say, oh, here's a question from Lee, who's been here a couple of times. And I know that Lee lives in Baltimore and he's trying to transition into this type of life. And you phrase it kind of like an intro, right? So at that point, you're enabling the relationships. And then you take, as long as you're doing that on a regular basis, and you take the 1 hour long conversation and you turn it into the podcast, the YouTube channel, the best of YouTube show, the 7 different Instagram clips of me going crazy, saying something that I really care about and you being into it, the 5 questions that the audience asked with their name being said as the audience. You make 5 quote cards of the best things that I say. You turn the lessons learned into an email that you send to your group. You turn the email into a blog post that's SEO optimized to your group. Now you've taken this like one seed, this one relationship enablement thing, and planted it across 6 different ecosystems in 20 different pots. And the more that you do that, it turns into this flywheel, right? Like if you look at my social media feed, it's not about me. It's not trying to be the star of the stage. It's being the stage itself, right? So like the more that you are having these conversations and saying, oh, okay, this is who you are and the value you have to offer. Hey, everybody, this is this person that has this to offer. Who needs it? Like the more people come into your life. And, in this world of relationship businesses, that is relationship scaling, in my opinion, right? Like this is how you scale relationships. And by the way, that's the category that I'm trying to create, is relationship scaling, because I think there's marketing, I think there's networking, I think there's content, and there's CRM and whatever. But who is actually addressing this idea that nowadays we have access to way more relationships than we ever had, right? Like I have way more casual friends thanks to Facebook and Instagram than I ever had. And I was always super popular. You know what I mean? So like, how do we continue to scale this? And how do we turn this into like a system of scaling relationships that's true to the new context of today, which is a digital and in-person context? So that's the relationship flywheel, is the solution to relationship scaling.
This is one of those moments that I talk about so much on my podcast that I forget that I'm hosting an interview, and I just want you to like keep teaching me. Holy cow,
Cool.
that's amazing. That's so amazing. And one of the things that you said, I think is there's so much you said that's super powerful, but one that really stuck out at me is your Facebook feed isn't about you trying to take over the stage. You are the stage. And I think that's something that's missing so much. And I can tell you something that I've struggled with in the past that I recently got over was, I'm not going to talk about my podcast on my profile, on my Facebook profile, because I don't want to highlight me. But then as soon as you take that out and you're like, it was never about me to begin with, right? As soon as you become the stage and you highlight the other person, all of
Mhm.
a sudden, all that pressure goes away. And what's really interesting to me about what you do is there are so many people out there who have great intentions and really awful execution. And then they kind of get lost in this sea of Facebook messages or Instagram messages or LinkedIn messages where they say, "Oh, I want to add value to you." And to me, the moment somebody says, "Oh, I just see we became Facebook friends, let me add value to you," I'm like, "What are you trying to sell me? What do you want me to buy? What do you want me to join?" And so what you're talking about is a way to give that without having to use the words that everybody triggers. Okay, I don't want to talk to you because you're going to sell me something.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I do use those words, right? Like I'm always like, whenever I connect with somebody on LinkedIn, I'm like, hey man, just hoping to follow along here and see where I can add value to your journey. Right. But it's not like, hey man, I want to add value to you. Let's hop on a call right now so I can add value to you. It's just like,
Yeah.
dude, it's very casual, right? Like um, but you're right. At the end of the day, human beings are happiest when they're in service, right? So I learned this in networking when I was before my revelation. I was walking into a room thinking, what story am I going to tell? How am I going to like be funny? Whatever. And then when it switched to just like, oh, I wonder who I'm going to meet and I wonder how I'm going to help them, it made it way easier to walk into a room full of strangers. And the moment that I realized that the person standing alone, or even the person that's already in a conversation inside of a networking room, their biggest fear is to not be in a conversation and look like a douche. It made it real easy to introduce myself to people, even if they're in conversation or not, because it's like, oh, I just released that pressure valve of, do I check my phone? Do I walk around looking like I know somebody? Do I go get my fifth scotch? Right? Like, as long as you phrase it to yourself as you're being in service, you're really it really enables you to do whatever you think is right. Right? As
Yeah,
long as somebody
absolutely.
else.
And I'm really glad that you pointed that out because I guess you're right. I do reach out to people and say, "Hey, I want to see how we can add value." And then there's just a difference in the way it's done, for sure. So I appreciate that, pointing that difference out. So this relationship flywheel, if somebody wants to learn more about you, about what you're doing with it, about how they can incorporate this into their life and their business, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Connect with Pablo everywhere, right? My Instagram handle is Connect with Pablo. My website is connectwithpablo.com. My business is Be the Stage. It's bethestage.live. That's where we execute the relationship flywheel as a service. And my podcast, The Chief Executive Connector, is really just a living document of the relationship flywheel, right? Like anywhere that you interact with me. By the way, I would say LinkedIn, but finding Pablo Gonzalez in LinkedIn is like finding John Smith, right? Except Pablo Gonzalez usually have 6 children. So it's difficult. But
And they're all named Pablo Gonzalez.
yeah. So what's funny, Amber? This is totally random, but my name is very common in Latin Americans, and we're a really, really large population. I have never ranked in any search engine, but now on Spotify or iTunes, if you put in Pablo Gonzalez, it's the Chief Executive Connector Show and the Not Your Average Investor Show.
That's awesome.
So, there is something really, really valuable about this world of audio that we're getting into, and this like real estate of like audio search that's only going to get better and better. That holding that real estate, I think has a lot of value and worth for the future.
That's awesome. And just really side semi interesting fact. Have you ever Googled yourself?
Yeah, all the
Because
time.
I always Google, like the first thing I do is Google my guests and I'm like Pablo Gonzalez and I forget how popular your name is and it came up with some like Mexican general and I was like,
Mhm.
that's not the Pablo Gonzalez I'm looking for. So in case you were wondering who you share a name with, that among with others, I was like, wait a minute, that's not him.
Yeah. So listen, if you put Connect with Pablo in Google, if you put Pablo Gonzalez community, if you put Pablo Gonzalez networking, I show up. Right. But
That's
like Pablo
awesome.
Gonzalez by itself, impossible. If you put in Chief Executive Connector, it's only me. Right. That's my category.
Of course, which is what we're talking about in this of how to stand out, right? How to stand out when people don't know you yet. Because obviously, when people meet you, you're unforgettable. Your energy is one of a kind.
Mhm.
Your ability to, like I said, draw in an audience, your ability to add value to people, to just show up in a place of service is one of a kind. But until they experience that, you need something to get them going, and that title is worth it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I want to clarify something, right? I do have natural talent in being entertaining, but my ability to show up in a way that I'm likable is very much a worked on skill, right? Like I think just like anybody else, right? Like you work on it to get better, right? I would say that in college I showed up as an outrageous frat guy, and that probably segmented my influence a decent amount, right? So this idea of showing up as somebody that wants to help everybody is genuine, but it's genuine because I just want to make as many friends as possible, right? Like at first it was just like, well, I think if I'm Ace Ventura all the time, I make as many friends as possible. If I'm doing beer funnels all the time, I make as many, right? Like I was wrong. But I think you work on it, and to the point that you were making, as somebody that speaks about networking and relationship building or whatever, I always get asked about the follow up, right? Like, how do you follow up? What's your follow up technique? And like I said, in my past, I have not been a super disciplined dude, but what I have learned is that if you make a great impression, your follow up matters much less, right?
Ooh, that's really interesting. And I can see it. I can
Yeah.
see it. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So like I'll be randomly driving and I'll call somebody I haven't spoken to in 3 years that I met at a networking event or at a conference 4 years ago. And they're like, Pablo, what's up? Like
Yeah.
it's a different effect. Right. So I've always, my whole life has been about this like first impression, how you enter a room, how you become known, how people associate you with a good feeling and want to be, like how you open that door, right? So like I tell people I'm a world-class opener and a mediocre closer because I've never been the back end conversion guy because I'm too afraid of coming across as a jerk and whatever. But as a top of funnel, like I think I'm world class at it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've loved this conversation, and this relationship flywheel idea is it's a game changer for sure in your relationships, in your business, in
Yeah.
everything. So I appreciate you sharing that. I want to switch gears just a little bit and head
Yeah.
into the success element of
Cool.
this podcast. What particularly does success mean to you? In the beginning, the audience heard that you don't find success, you define it. And
Mhm.
so I always ask my guests, what does success mean to you?
Yeah. So I kind of defined it a second ago, right? To me, success has 4 steps, and it is identifying the thing that you are born to do, that you love doing, that you think you can, that you're awesome at, right? Like, I love surfing. I'm not awesome at it, right? Like, there's no way I'm ever going to make a living out of it, right? But like, so I identifying that thing that you love doing, that you're great at, figure out how to serve others with it instead of serving yourself with it only. Once you figure out how to serve others people with it, figure out how to monetize that in a way that seems genuine to you. And once you're able to monetize it in a way that seems genuine to you, scale around that, right? So to me, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was at that level one. I was like, I was trying to figure out how I can, like what is that thing? I guess probably around 4 years ago, I realized this whole like connection thing is what I want to like be known for and my thing. And I'm really gonna just dive into it. Somewhere around 2019, I realized I can serve people with it when I went to a conference and I walked away with 25 friends and everybody was talking to like 6 people in a 1 day conference. Then it took me about 6 months to monetize it for the first time, right? So like without doing the mastermind, whatever. And now I'm trying to build this like $20 million, $40 million company around it, right? So to me, success is not the ability to do what you want to do, it's the doing what you want to do.
Ooh, that's powerful. I'm stealing that. That there
I
goes our
stole it from
clip,
someone
right?
else.
There
Yeah.
goes our clip. Don't we all? I'm just reading the book Steal Like an Artist, and I'm in love with it. Have you read that yet?
No, but I'm into it.
Yeah, it's because the first time, I mean, when we all get into the entrepreneurial space, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't steal somebody else's stuff, especially when you come from a highly intellectual background, because it's beat into you like cite your sources, right? Like there's no plagiarism. If I go to court and say something and I don't say exactly where I got it, then I'm in big trouble. And then you come into the entrepreneur space and they're like, just steal like an artist because nothing's unique anyways. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a different world.
Yeah, listen, I like to tell people that I got voted funniest in high school and I've never written a joke. I've only seen funny movies and used the lines, right? So like to me, life is a recontextualization of things, right? Like I think my great value that I do whenever I walk into any room and I'm advising anybody in business is this idea that I have just networked the hell out of everything that I know in business for the last 10 years. So if I meet a plumber, I can give him the thing that works well for a lawyer that may fit his bill, right? Like, or if I
Yeah.
meet a lawyer, I can tell them the thing that I know worked for a insulation worker that fits his bill, right? Just because I've always approached everybody from the standpoint of I can learn something from everybody. And if I can learn something from everybody, it's useful to other people.
I love it. I love it. All right, man. Before we wrap up, I'd love to do a quick random round, kind of put you on the
Let's
spot
go.
for just a minute. You okay with that?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. If you could have any profession other than what you're doing now, what do you think would be fun to attempt?
Broadway star.
Oh, I see it. I
Yeah.
do. If you could time travel, where would you go and why?
That's a good one. I would love to be in that like early 1960s beginning of surf culture in Southern California. I think that is a really, really interesting time period. That was another prosperous era where we're coming out of some heavy shit and the world is kind of like everything is roses and everybody's doing well, plus the birth of this like new sport and new culture that I think is uniquely American.
I love it. So, as a side note, really quickly, behind me on my bookshelf is a book called Making Mavericks. Have you read this book yet?
I have not read that book, but I'm very familiar with the story of how Mavericks got established as a surf spot.
Yeah. So, Making Mavericks is actually. So, are you familiar with Jay Moriarty, the surfer? He was like a 16-year-old surfer that got his fame on surfing Mavericks.
Is he the guy that first paddled out of Mavericks? He was like the guy that like kind of like made it the spot.
He's not the guy that made it the spot, but he's the
Okay.
youngest one to do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But this book is written by his coach. And
Cool.
so it's all about like who he was and the type of person he had to be to coach one of the most well-known surfers ever. So I figured that might be right up your alley. It's an
For sure.
amazing book.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. The mindset of big wave surfers is something that I'm
oh,
really, really into. They're maniacs.
I watched the movie Chasing Mavericks on
Yeah.
Netflix and I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't even
Watch.
imagine.
There's an awesome documentary called Riding Giants that has the story of Mavericks and all the other big wave spots.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I've seen it a couple times, but I haven't actually read it.
Cool.
I am afraid of being something snack, so I have not yet taken up surfing because I'm too afraid something's going to eat me.
Got it.
So speaking of books, when you're consuming content, do you audiobook? Do you read books? Like, what's your preference?
Audio has changed the game for me, man. Because I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of ADD, right? So audio when discovering serial as a podcast and understanding that this is a new way for entertainment and consumption of stuff while I'm doing other things has been a major catalyst, like one of these like black swan events that really changed my life. Because now while I'm cooking, while I'm walking the dog, like every morning I'm listening to like 45 minutes to an hour and a half of a book or a podcast or something, and all I'm doing is copying and stealing everything.
I love it. So you already mentioned a book earlier today that was fantastic.
Mhm.
If you had to suggest a book to a new entrepreneur that's just getting started in the business or personal development space, what would you suggest?
Well, it would be different for both, right? Like if you are looking to build a company, I am super high on. Do you know who Jim Collins is? The guy that
Uh-huh.
wrote Good to Great. So
Yeah.
so Jim Collins has essentially been asking one question for the last 25 years, which is how do you build an enduring company? And within that, he wrote Good to Great and Built to Last and all this other stuff. He just wrapped up that chapter of his life and put it all into like one volume of all of his work called Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. And it's unreal. Like it's amazing. Just a great blueprint of it'll change your mind of what you thought works well for business, and it's going to make you much more people focused. I'll tell you that right now. And it's proven, right? Like this is like all the great companies, and the reason why they endure is because they got the right person in the right seat of the right bus, you know, and how to
I
do it.
love it.
So super into that. Personal development depends what mindset you're in. As far as the book that I go to when I'm down, I go to The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. I've read that book a couple of times in different times of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the book that really kind of started making me think a little bit different. And by the way, audiobook is fantastic, is Can't Hurt Me by David
Oh
Goggins.
my gosh, so good. I tell people
So good.
that there are a few books that you have to listen to the audiobook. That I mean, if you choose to read the book, that's fine, but you have to listen to the audiobook, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, by the way, I think that format, Malcolm Gladwell's latest audiobook, he did the same format. Like, I think that is a new category defining format of the mix between podcast and audiobook that I think is fucking genius.
Yeah, I love it. And it's really interesting because one of the first books that I read in the entrepreneurial space was Crushing It by Gary Vee. And he attempts to do that, but he does it like mid chapter, right? So when he's reading the book, he's like, when I wrote this, this is what I meant, but I want to expand on this a little bit.
Yeah.
And I loved that format. But then when they did it podcast style at the end of every chapter, I was like, now you get like the book as it was written and you get all the extra stuff at the same time. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. It's going to be a game-changing way that audiobooks are recorded in the future.
Dude, that part when he's talking about that story of carrying the boat with his like ruck crew or whatever, and then all of a sudden he jumps into the chant and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. I was listening to that on, I've only done like 2 or 3 trail runs in my life, but I was in the middle of this like trail run. I had no idea when the trail was going to end. I thought it was going to end like 10 minutes before I was still running right now. And like, I was like, should I walk? Should I not walk? All of a sudden that comes on and I'm like, it's like the best workout companion of all time, man.
It really is. You like when I'm working out with my personal trainer, every now and then he's just like, what would David Goggins tell you to do? And I'm like, something I'm not going to do.
Take souls.
Right? Take souls. Excuse me.
You got it. Yeah. If I ever run a marathon, I'm just going to put that on and go.
Oh, dude, it's the only way to do it. A marathon's on my list of things to do. And like, I hate running. I hate it. But it's got to happen. So, all right, last question, and maybe the most important because I'm a music nerd.
Yes.
What's your pump up song? What is it that you listen to when you just can't have a bad day?
Oh man. There's a song called Greatest Man That Ever Lived by Weezer. It's not my favorite song. It's not anything, but when I need to be like, get into this, just like, I am all that is man kind of like thing. Like I go to that one. Before it used to be the Free Willy song, the Will You Be There by Michael Jackson. Like that's
I wish that I could like honestly say I didn't know what song you're talking about, but I do. Anybody who says that they didn't love Free Willy, they're lying. They're lying. It should be every person's guilty pleasure.
Man, I guess, yeah. Like I haven't revisited that movie in a very long time, but I would watch it if it was on TV. But
I haven't even thought of
that
it.
song, like homie, like the rhythm of the door, like man, that song is so like, will you be there? Like, man, that song is amazing, right?
So
Or
I
Under
have to
Pressure by Queen.
say, I'm going on 160 podcast episodes, and you're the first guest to sing to me.
Oh, well.
So look at that. Making firsts all over the place. All right, man. I really appreciated our conversation. One more time, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Man, that's so hard. I would love for them to search Pablo Gonzalez on iTunes or Spotify or whatever their favorite platform is, and either pick the Not Your Average Investor Show or pick the Chief Executive Connector Show. Those are really my babies. That would be my favorite thing. And then from there, you can reach out to me. But my home base is connectwithpablo.com. It's just like a website that I'm not like super pumped about, but you can find me on every platform or shoot me an email. My email address is youshould@connectwithpablo.com because I want you to connect with me.
Which is the best email ever. It's unforgettable, just like everything else that you do. So That's amazing, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I've really appreciated our time together. If you are listening to this on the YouTube channel or on the podcast and you wish that you could have heard it earlier, head over and join the Success Center Facebook community to get first access to all of these videos and be able to interact if you choose to do so. Pablo, thanks so much for coming on with me. I appreciate it.
I'm in the Success Center. Hit me up in the Success Center if you want to talk to me. I'm down. Let's go.
You are in the Success Center. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the More Than Corporate podcast. If anything that was said during this episode resonated with you or provided value in any way, it would mean the world to me if you would head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the More Than Corporate podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you. If you'd also like to connect, I've created a Facebook group that is full of amazing people who also make it their mission to live their best life every single day. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, the name of that Facebook group is Success Center. Head over there, request to join, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.